Welcome back to DTF Film Session number 8. I'm Max Dean at the Max Dean on Twitter. I'm here with Nick Merriam at Nick with Sports. He is our director of draft content and scouting at Defiant Takes Football. And we are here to bring you Jordan Addison, Biletnikoff winner in the 2021 college football season. He's a wide receiver from USC. And to some people, best wide receiver in the class. We're going to get into what we think of him and where we kind of stack him up against some of the other guys that we've talked about already. Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm good. This is a fun one. This is a guy we've had our eyes on. One of the few guys like from the offseason that was really impressive. And he won the Biletnikoff last year, and he's a good player this year too. And just we didn't have a whole lot of these like consistently playing well prospects this year. So there's a lot of background on this guy that's fun to go over, and so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so why don't you give me some of your basic overview thoughts on the player, and then we're going to get into the film today.
Yeah, so he was a really good slot receiver last year. That was kind of his thing. And he kind of was used more of a gadgety player. Pittsburgh get the ball in his hands, had a good quarterback in Kenny Pickett, especially with like quick 3-step, 1-step drop throws. Just get him the ball, see if he can make them guy miss. He's good at that. In space, he can make guys miss. Not really a guy you want breaking a lot of tackles, and he's listed at 175. I wouldn't be shocked if he was smaller than that. Not thickly built, could add some weight. Don't want him taking a ton of hits. Kind of more of in the Devontae Smith realm of build. Not quite that type of receiver, though. Not a guy you're necessarily watching play on the outside and have him like stacking routes and catching these crazy contested balls, which is what ultimately has Smith be a top 10 pick. That's why Addison, I think, is more of in a weaker draft, even more of a guy that goes in the 20s somewhere. But this year he changes his play style with a different offense, different quarterback. He becomes more of a deep threat that kind of has that slot versatility. He's faster maybe than I thought he was fast last year, but he really, really showed that he had that speed this year. He's going to run in the 4.3s. I don't know if it's going to be, more 4.33 or more 4.38, but he's going to be one of the faster guys at the combine. And he really has developed into kind of the most refined stretch the field type receiver in this draft to an extent where we talk about these kind of speed receivers and we're like, oh, guys get drafted because they're fast. This guy has really, really refined the art of beating guys deep, and I'm excited to talk about it because this is something I did. It was my thing when I was playing the high school football too. So, but much to a lesser extent. But like, I'm into this. The idea of beating a guy is just with speed alone is very linear. But there's an art to it. There's a different type of stacking that specifically goes to just winning on that type of 9 route, because it's not like just setting stuff up and being like, oh, he's gonna, obviously like you have your underneath route off of a go route is a curl. Like you can sell a deep route, break down quick, curl route, right? That's a very simple way to win underneath off of that. But it's different when they're scared of the deep route, right? And they're going to be setting deep for it.
All right. So I love wide receiver play. I do. I love to watch it. I love to break it down and get into the nuance of it. I love that in defensive back play. They're my favorite players to watch. So is that basic of me? Maybe. But it is what I like. I like defensive line play as well. But I think these matchups I find the most fascinating. All right. So we're going to get into the tape here. We've got him at 6 foot, 175, listed measurables. We'll see what that actually looks like when he gets to the combine. But there is no doubt that he's going to test well in other facets. He's definitely a speedy player, and you can see that on film. So let's take a look at what we've got here. All right.
So this is the pretty most shared Addison clip because I think it sums up his game really well. It's just his ability to beat you deep and track balls when he does beat a guy. This is QB Kelly, who had a really good Senior Bowl. And this is just him on a post route, just taking him, to the other hash and beating him to that point. And then the body control and ability to stay up through contact once he gets hit after that. Almost like a center fielder when he's down there. This is something that I think popped up often in this game, and you need to have the kind of ability to catch these balls in stride and keep your body control, because often the action of going to get that ball which is coming down at a much faster speed than I think people realize. I mean, it's more like catching a punt than you think when this ball is thrown as far as it is. But then also have the ability to not break stride, not fall, especially when a player is at your ankles. He is, you have described earlier, has a smoothness to his game that is impressive. And I think that is very important when you're one of these guys who's trying to kind of in one shot go from standing effectively here to the end zone without breaking any movement.
All right. So a couple of things on this. First of all, if this is a throw that leads him a little bit more, touchdown, 100%. So he has to slow down for the ball a little bit. But the key element of this play that stood out to me is when he makes his break, there is zero loss of momentum. In fact, it almost seems like he speeds up, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So like you said, it's a post route. He's running almost straight at Kelly, or Blue Kelly, I assume his last name is. And when he breaks on that slant inside, it's just, there's no loss. Where is the loss of speed there? There's just none.
Yeah, and it's sometimes, you can identify when the foot is put in the ground on a cut, and often even with guys who are really good, you can identify, and you're just like, wow, that was a really quick change of direction. For him, like, it doesn't even look like he's changing direction. It just looks like he's adjusted his angle a little bit. He is very good at this full speed change of hip fluidity type thing where it just doesn't it's all fluid for him. Like, there's no thought process of like, I need to chop my feet 3 times before I can stop and slow down so I can break in and out. For him, it is just, he doesn't have to sink his hips a whole lot. He just has to keep going. And that's natural for him.
And he has great natural stride. He runs like a sprinter, a lot of leg drive. So I mean, this play, it's not super complex, but it just shows off a natural physical ability for him. That's very, very impressive.
Yeah.
And he breaks that tackle right there, which I completely forgot about, which is also pretty hard to do for the slider type of player that we're talking about here. For him to have the contact balance to run through that, that's also notable. And he's a tough player, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes.
Yeah. So the question for me with the deep threat, and when we talk about Jalen Hyatt, which is going to be the next video we do, is how do you round out your game further beyond just I can beat you deep? You need to have things that stack up that scare the defense. And for me, I think Addison has a really nice development of secondary options that he can use in his game. Like I said, he was a productive slot player. So when we go to this next play, we're going to show you like what he's able to do in terms of translating his speed and acceleration to other routes. The next play, by the way, they're going to point to the wrong player. He's actually the player in the slot. He's number 3. This arrow is going to be wrong. That's not something I can deal with. My bad. But it was built into the clip we got. Yeah. It was built in. He's changed the fluidity we talked about in that last play translates to kind of the quick slants, the out route. So he's the player below that arrow who is going to catch this ball. Is very quick, and you can see something subtle here on this one. It's very subtle, but he straightens out his route a little bit after leveraging outside to the degree where he does pull this corner a little bit inwards because now he's running in, he's leveraging in, straightens out more vertically for just a second to make him think maybe he's angling away from this safety and just going for the go route here, the seam route. And that pulls the safety in a position where when he does eventually break for this out route, he puts the safety kind of rounding like he's like running around the bases here to get to that point where he's catching the ball. He creates this by leveraging that deep route on his own, which will allow him to get the space for a clear out on the other side, easy out route, easy like 12 yards here. I mean, that corner is almost falling, right? And he didn't do a whole lot to create that. He just kind of scares the defense with his speed. He is falling. He has to put his hands down, right? So this is going to be your game as a deep threat. How do you consistently leverage the fact that I am going to beat you deep if you're not set for it in a spot where you can just kind of not anticipate kind of the leverage of the deep ball and be in a spot where even though I can beat you, there's too much room in between us for me to actually get to that spot before you. And because everyone is taught give up the 10-yard route before the 40-yard route, right? This is a situation where that corner is clearly out of position initially because he's outside leverage. Addison kind of breaks it in, that's outside, scared of the deep threat. Now he's out of position, and you're able to leverage that out route to a point where he is going to do this on more than just out routes. It's going to be curls. Curls the easiest one. So once I see you be able to run a route like this, I know that you have a little bit of a game to you besides just beating a guy deep ball.
There are little things like, for as refined of a route runner as we talk about him being, right here you can see as the ball is snapped, there's that drop where he gets into his initial get off, right? You'd like to see that be a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like you'd like to see him just go, but it's not. Yeah, exactly. It's not horrible. But what he does do is he explodes off the line. He knows that these guys are afraid of him deep. So and this is also consistent, he sets up DBs very consistently with incorrect leverage, so to speak. So he is really leading you inside here. He waits till that DB has his hips fully turned because of the threat of that deep speed, and then breaks. Let's see. So it's
he makes it like his break is almost rounded on this play.
It is because he's running so fast, I think, and that's probably going to still work for him because he's still getting a 1, 2, 3.
But I also think it's intentional to an extent.
I agree. Yeah, that's what I mean. At the speed with which he's running, it's like it's 1, 2, 3, and then this DB, like he's trying to turn and transition with him. He can't though. No. Comes back for the ball. Tough catch.
The important takeaway for me overall in terms of his route running ability is that he's not like the average crafty slot you normally see who can just shake you. He's just extremely smooth and calculated. And that's why I think a lot of times when you see him catch a ball like this, it doesn't at the naked eye look like anything more than just, oh, he ran an out route and beat the guy. But when you really look at kind of the nuance of it, there's details here that are impressive.
Okay.
All right. So
the next one through.
He had a hands issue at Pittsburgh. It was a big problem, especially in contested situations. I don't think he became this amazing contested receiver this year, but I do think you saw him do a better job of extending his arms, catching the ball without them close to his chest, and also kind of expanding his catch radius to a degree where when a ball is off target like this, he can go get it, right? He doesn't really, this isn't the most complicated ball to catch for him, but it would have been more of a problem for him last year. And I think you did see him take steps in terms of that at USC, which is important to me, even if it's something simple like this, where this ball is up in the air, he's got to go up and get it. He's going to get hit pretty quickly after he brings it down, but he does protect the ball and ultimately you get, a 10-yard gain out of it.
Mm-hmm. And even for the shorter route, same thing. He is driving hard at the outside shoulder of this DB. And so he is not even 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, and that DB has already flipped his hips because he's very committed to selling the incorrect leverage. And then let's see, 1, 2, 3. His break is clean inside, and then it's not the easiest catch, but goes up and gets it, extends. And again, that's pretty tough for his size. Like that's 1, 2. You know what I mean? It takes 2 guys to get him down, and there's at least another yard in there in terms of added.
He smoothes momentum to a point where he can kind of absorb this contact through the catch and keep his motion, which I think you see a lot of guys just fall when that happens, right? His stride distribution is consistent, right? You don't see him kind of shorten his stride when he goes up to catch a ball, and that allows him to kind of keep his body control through contact, through the catch, but also, not slow down once you're having to slow a little bit. Normally you have to slow to catch a ball, but he doesn't. All right. We talked about how he's slight, so absorbing contact. Do you block? This isn't really a blocking clip, but just like he's tough enough. Like he'll bring it on. And, you see he is not the best blocker in this draft class, but of some of the top guys, like I think he's a better blocker than Quentin Johnston. This guy's not afraid to kind of take on the contact. This is an RPO play. They don't throw the bubble screen, but he does a good job to keep this corner outside of him, which is where he's supposed to put him in terms of leverage. And, obviously doesn't manhandle him, but good base, gets his shoulder into him, I'm okay with this. Like, this is a guy who is willing to block for you. He's willing to take on contact, both in the passing game when he has the ball in his hands, but also as a blocker. If you're going to stick him in the slot and have him cracking down, he's not going to be afraid to do it. Love to see that from a guy who has played as long as he does. He plays like a veteran to that extent, right? He's going to give you the effort. Yep. He's going to give you the contact that you want.
I couldn't agree more. And this is a key difference between the deep threat. I shouldn't say key, but it's a big difference in why I like him more than I like Jamison Williams last year. Williams, people had this, they would say that he was tough because he played on special teams, but it's so different to scream down the field with that kind of speed and just hit a punt returner who's not really ready for you, than it is to block a DB. You know what I mean? Get your hands dirty in there. And he just like didn't want any part of that. And I didn't love to see that. And I know it's not the most important part, but it matters to me when we're talking about high first-round picks at wide receiver. And I love that he's willing to do this. You know, I love that he's not just manhandled on the play and just thrown to the ground. I love that you included that. And it made a difference to me, honestly. All
right, play 5. So this is double move versus man coverage. We got a press corner who is going to turn his shoulder like we've seen in the past here, and he's going to show you some ball tracking and burst at the end of the play as well. But again, can't just run go routes. You know, if you run go routes all the time, they're just going to start setting safety over there, giving a guy over the top help. You got to show me something else. And this is going to be a corner post from the slot. Again, we're seeing him kind of show different alignments. Can you beat guys from different leverages? Look at how deep that this corner is playing out of a man coverage look, right? Like they are respecting the deep route. Obviously, this is a great play call. Like, you have the guy on the corner post so that with all that space available, the corner's afraid of it. But he does such a good job here of setting up the turn and then attacking the turn of the corner once it happens and running to space to let his quarterback throw him open.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the play I was thinking about that if it was a better throw, it would have been a touchdown because the other one was a touchdown. But all right, so once again, sells hard on the incorrect leverage, and then he just spins this poor defensive back around. I mean, so stems inside, and then right here, he's got the DB with his hips flipped inside again to respect the speed there, which I'm not even sure is necessarily the right play for that because you've got the safety there. But once he gets his hips turned, immediately he begins his break outside. And then because he knows that he wants to go inside, ultimately, he's got his back fully to him. He literally has his back to him once he starts that break back inside again. So, I mean, this DB's got no chance on this route.
So the rule here is you want to be on the blind spot of the corner as long as you can. And so he's just running at his back, right? So there's a chance here that this isn't necessarily called post corner, right? Or corner post. And he's just, you know, there's the inside turn. All right, I'm going to attack, you know, the backside, and then you're going to turn again. I'm going to attack your backside again, and just completely stay out of your vision to the point where this corner cannot make a play on him, right? And, you know, you could keep doing that and flatten out, which is why I think he initially takes kind of a flat leverage. But, you know, this is the same thing when you're trying to break tackles. Like, if you can get your hand on the side of a defender, you know, it's very hard for them to wrap you up with both arms because they're not squared to you. It's hard to stay with a guy when you're not able to watch their belly button, right? So you have this guy now in a space where not only can he not see your belly button, he just can't see you at all, right? So you can run wherever you want as long as you're out of his vision and you're going to be in space.
You've also got this safety opening up to him here. And then once he breaks outside, he completely changes his mind about where to go. And so that move is also fluid enough to trick the safety who doesn't even realize what's happening until here. he you know, this is a beautiful route. Really, it is.
Yeah, this is probably the pinnacle of his tape this year. But so I don't want to compliment Deshaun Jackson because I think Deshaun's a different player. I think he's maybe a better pure deep threat, but has less of an underneath game to Addison. But he's about as similar of a player as I've seen because of the way his motion works, the way his smoothness, the way he just kind of bursts off the ball, and that's his game. You're going to see it again here. 9 route versus what looks like cover 4 to me here. Initially, I didn't write it down, so I might be wrong about that. But again, Oregon State kind of gives you this turn to the strong side of the field, right? They're facing away. He's got the backside of the corner facing towards the sideline. So how do you attack that leverage? You press the outside leverage. He either doesn't give it to you and you take inside because he's giving you the numbers, or he doesn't come with you and you just have the alley on the outside and he takes it. He does not get the ball in this play because of pressure. But again, gets the shoulder turn and attacks it. And if with he's not the strong side of this play, so he's probably not one of the main reads. But with a better play call, maybe, and more time for Caleb Williams, this could be a touchdown.
Right. So again, it's the nuance to getting open deep that you were talking about earlier before we started the film. He's giving you inside, right? Like he's playing with outside, right? That's called outside leverage when he's giving you the inside, right? Mm-hmm. So when you see that, you want to make sure that he commits to that. So you come at his inside shoulder, and once he has moved in that direction because he's sold on your ability to run deep, then you get that little outside movement and take his backside shoulder while his back is to you. And then when he's trying to figure out if you're running an out-breaking route right now, because again, you're completely in his blind spot, and you just run right past him. Right? Because if he just turns and runs, there's a chance that he can stay close to with you. But because he has no idea what's happening with you right now, you can just run right past him.
And to be completely honest with you, in an NFL game, if that's an NFL corner, this is probably a holding call that he draws, because that guy's not going to let him beat him. He's going to grab him and make sure he doesn't get taken to the ground. So that's why you see deep threats draw those calls more often than any other receivers, right? He is pro ready because of all the stuff we're talking about. Like, he is not a guy that I look at and think he has any possibility of not being a starting caliber player on day one as a receiver. I don't know if he's going to be more than just a slot player who could stretch the field. But I think, the more we watch him, the more I think maybe the Deshaun Jackson comp isn't unfair. I just think that Jackson had different speed maybe, and no one really wants to comp to that type of player. But he really can have that type of impact for an NFL team based off of what we've seen in college. Maybe have some concerns about competition level being lesser in the Pac-12. And maybe the quarterback play he had between Pickett and Caleb Williams being better than maybe any quarterback tandem any other receiver in this draft has played with is also something different, because he's going to play with, let's say, New Orleans takes him at 29, which I believe they mocked him. We don't know what the Saints quarterback is going to be yet. Maybe Derek Carr is a quarterback, and Caleb Williams might end up being a better quarterback than Derek Carr. So I don't know. He's kind of similar to Kenny Pickett, though, so that might work too. But he is, I think, when we talk about deep threats in the draft, we often, we don't really talk about the details of it. And I think Jamison Williams last year was pretty good at the stuff we're talking about right now. I think Jalen Waddle a couple years back was as well. But there are players in the past who have been kind of speed first, who don't really have all this going for them. I think, honestly, Jalen Hyatt, who's going to be the next video, might be one of those guys. Whereas Addison, for me, you don't need to have a scheme that sets up the deep routes. You just need to have Addison.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he should be a first-round pick all day. I also think he can play outside. I think he can be your Z. I think he can be your flanker. And I think, there's really no reason that he can't be successful at the next level. And he can run out of the slot and outside, I think. We didn't really see anything here in terms of him having to play against press coverage. You saw that he has the toughness to take on guys as a blocker. So I haven't watched enough of him to say that he can consistently beat press.
Well, it should be said, they're not playing press because they're afraid of him beating them.
Exactly.
I mean, if you can swim out of press, then you're going to get burned all day. So, that's a question maybe that needs to be answered more. Maybe dive in more and see if we can find more press reps. But based off of the things we've seen so far, and I think at Pittsburgh there was some press, and he did a good job against that. It just wasn't maybe in this fashion because he was doing some of these more shorter routes. But he is capable, I think.
I agree. I mean, like I said, first round pick all day. And at this point, I think just based on the guys that we've done so far, he's probably my second guy ahead of Quentin Johnson. But we've got some more players to watch. Haven't watched Zay Flowers yet to any complex degree. But right now, Addison would be my number 2 behind Jackson Smith and Jigba based off what I've seen. All right. I'm at the Max Dean on Twitter, Nick at Nick with Sports. You can find us doing these prospect breakdowns consistently throughout the offseason leading up to the draft. You can find Kyron Samuels and I doing offensive line tape breakdowns, brick wall breakdowns on the same YouTube channel. We're live every Monday and Thursday to talk about prospect groups as a whole, as well as offseason previews for the individual divisions in the NFL. You can find us on podcast feed, Defiant Takes Football, and of course on defianttakesfootball.com is where all the written work is going to be. So that will do it for us today. Nick, thanks for joining me, and we will be back soon with Jalen Hyatt.